Hey, good morning. Today we are in Louisville, Texas, following up with a recent installation. We did 20 Q-cell 430 watt modules on the roof, potentially soon to add a few more up there. That's an 8.6 kilowatt solar system. And then what you can see behind us is 85.8 kilowatt hours of battery capacity. So we used the EG4 FlexBoss and GridBoss setup. That's a hybrid system that'll work both on and off grid, and a whole heck of a lot of battery capacity. And the man with the plan right here, Sanjay, how did you decide what type of setup that you wanted?
I started this journey in just providing some backup solution for the house, right? So started with a generator system and started, researching different options, and I landed on, hey, I want to do more than a backup. I want to also, be grid independent. So I want to save utility, right? And that's kind of where I landed on this setup right here, this configuration. And the reason for the extra large battery capacity is, I wanted to account for all those days that you may not have sunshine, right? Take advantage of time of use plans like free nights or free days or something like that to charge the batteries and then use the energy during peak times, right? So hopefully, the outcome is no electric bill.
Exactly. So you considered first, or your foray into it a little bit, was standby automated generator.
Right.
It sounds like part of the drawback to a system like that is it would just be a cost in addition to the power bill.
Correct.
A system like this kills two birds with one stone.
Exactly. And I still have the generator that I can connect into this system. So should we have power outage that goes beyond 2 days, for example, I can still hook up the generator and charge the batteries and extend my power to my house.
Yeah, very cool. These systems are really amazing in that what makes them a hybrid system is that they work both on and off grid. So Sanjay's solar system will stay producing electricity even during an outage. Then you could also plug your generator into it as well. And this will manage those generation production systems so that way you're not overdoing it or anything like that.
Exactly. It's fully automatic. I don't need to flip a transfer switch, anything like that, or go and, manually do anything outside, right? It's fully automatic. It's going to take power from grid. It's going to take power from solar. It's going to take power from generator, all of that combined to feed my house.
And so through your investigation journey, all those types of things, started with a generator, just sounds like a portable generator that you were manually plugging in, those types of things. As you discovered solar and batteries, what different manufacturers did you look at, and how did you decide on this setup?
During my research, I looked at, multiple different manufacturers, Tesla being one of them, Enphase being the other one, right? EG4, I had, few solar contractors come out over here and they give you different proposals, right? And during my research, I found out that all of the Teslas or Enphase were kind of out of my budget, right? I wanted a cost-effective solution, and that's where I kind of landed on EG4. EG4, the battery capacity, this battery capacity with any other manufacturer would be cost prohibitive, right? And that's kind of why I landed on EG4. They provided the same type of warranty, right? 10 years warranty on battery. And battery, I mean, as long as it works, it doesn't really matter to me if it's EG4 or, anything else on it. But EG4 so far has provided great support, and everything works as advertised.
That's amazing. Okay. Are there any functionality advantages to an EG4 setup versus a couple of those other manufacturers you mentioned?
I mean, I think it's the all-in-one solution, one ecosystem, right? It's one manufacturer. If something happens, I just call EG4 or their distributor and I get my problem solved, right? Some of the other manufacturers use different components to make up the system, and that could lead to finger pointing between manufacturers, and that's one of the advantages that I see.
Absolutely. Some of the other opportunities that are unique to EG4 would be that ability to use your generator still. And the real big one that I see is that these systems have 200 amps of continuous pass-through power as well, where some of the others are far less than that. And so for a living life like normal in an off-grid scenario, this is going to provide you the opportunity to keep all of the circuits in your 200 amp breaker box on and powered should you need to.
Exactly.
Plus, you've got some smart ports, which we can see a little bit. You were kind enough to turn the mini split on in the garage for us while we're in here. And tell us a little bit more about what a smart port does and how that might help either on or off grid.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I have my heavy loads connected into the Grid Boss smart ports, like my air conditioner units, my electric dryer is in there, my mini splits in there. And the idea is that I can program the system to say there's a power outage and the battery reaches like 50% capacity, and I want to, still power my refrigerators and lights. But I need to turn some things off, right? In the old days, you have to go and turn the breakers off, right? Here, you basically program the smart port that when the battery reaches 50% capacity, start shutting them off, right? And so I can, save more battery capacity to power other critical loads.
That's so cool. So in an outage scenario, you can set logic to the batteries, and we would help you do that, or the manufacturer would help you do that. There's EG4 happens to be based in Sulphur Springs. So every time you've called somebody from there, it is a Texan in their office in Sulphur Springs. Seems like probably a relatively rapid response time.
Yeah, I actually called them a few times, and they were kind enough initially to walk me through the system and explain what the software configurations are. And I'm an engineer. I'm a tech myself, right? So I like to learn and know the system, how it works, and all the different configurations are, right? And they were kind enough to kind of explain that. A few times we have, some issues that it wasn't configured exactly the way it should be. You call them, somebody instantly picks up the phone, we resolve the situation, you're up and running.
Beautiful. We're going to come back to that here in a second, but just tying a bow around the smart port stuff. You're able to set logic in the system, will help you, EG4 will help you set all of that up. That could either be based on the state of charge of the batteries. So if the battery dips beneath whatever level you set it at, 50%, 40%, 30%, 75%, whatever, then turn off smart port 1 and or 2 and or 3 and or 4. It could also be based on time of day. So maybe you've got a pool. Maybe there's freezing weather conditions, and so you want to circulate the pool pumps to prevent your pool from freezing and causing a major, very costly catastrophe in a freeze event. Now you want to use your solar power to do that, and you want to preserve your battery for the nighttime outage. So you set the smart port for time of day instead of for state of charge of the batteries. So hey, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the winter months, pool pump, smart port, keep it on during an outage, shut it off at 5 o'clock. So that way we're safe overnight. Very cool. You mentioned you're an engineer. Yep. How long have you been doing that?
Oh, pretty much 25 years or so. I'm in IT, computers, networking equipment, all of that kind of stuff.
Very interesting. How did you get into that field?
It was a hobby that turned into career,
Yeah,
which is great. You never work a day in your life when you have that situation.
that's awesome. What when it was a hobby for you, what were your favorite things to tinker with?
Personal computers when they came out back in the day. We used to get different parts, make the computer out of it. Do a little bit of a programming in the computers and things like that. Obviously, play video games. And then then eventually started helping family and friends and that, oh wow, well, you can actually make a career out of this, right? And then ultimately led into doing what I do right now.
That's awesome. And during that journey, what's been one of the largest challenges from a technical standpoint that you've had to problem solve?
I mean, every day there's going to be a different challenge, right? In technology, you have to continuously learn, right? And you have to find answers that there might not be well documented out there, right? And if you're not able to do that, then it's kind of hard to solve problems. And so the biggest challenge is, hey, trying to use so many resources that are available on the internet to, find situations where other might have posted something, help you solve your problem.
Very cool. Sweet. So going back to the setup a little bit, after you determined EG4 is the right solution for you, what was the next step from there?
So initially, I was planning on doing an off-grid inverter, which they're 12,000 XP, and a few batteries, and really was attempting to do it myself because it is advertised as a DIY system. And then I started researching, and it all looks like you can do it by yourself, but then you have electrical codes, city permitting process, and all of that. And with electricity, even though I'm an engineer, I kind of shy away from doing electrical work, right? I want somebody who's professional and certified to do the electrical work. When I said, okay, well, the DIY system is not going to work for me, right? And so I reached out to EG4 and say, I want this system, but I want somebody to help me, put it in. And that's kind of where you came in.
Very cool. And expand on that a little bit. How did you and I meet?
So I don't know for sure, but I reached out to EG4 in their a installers program or something like that, and I said, here's what I'm looking at. I want somebody to help me install this 12,000 XP and the battery setup and the panels, right? And so they actually initially helped me design the system, and then they worked their magic on the back end, and they must have sent you information about me, and that's kind of how I'm assuming you reached out to me.
Yes, sir. Cool. Yeah. So Miranda happens to be my technical support person at EG4, and she connected you and I together, and we took it from there. And so what was it about right now that made this the right time for you to do this?
I've been looking at solar for a while, right? And started budgeting for a project like this. I mean, this is a little bit over budget, but I started budgeting for a solar project. Because there's that 30% federal tax rebate program that's going on for solar, and they've added the same rebate structure for energy storage as well, residential energy storage as well. So the whole thing, I would get, 30% rebate. Also, there's some uncertainty around, tariffs and what they're going to do in terms of the cost of the product. And so those two kind of components, made me pull the trigger on it right now, sooner than later.
Totally makes sense. So, yeah, a lot of uncertainty. We're not even sure either. I think in the long run, everything will be fine. I mean, EG4 recently opened a manufacturing facility in Commerce, Texas. So I know they've got plans to expand their domestic production of everything. So there could be some hiccups or road bumps in the interim, but there's already been a huge push to reshore the manufacturing of a lot of these systems. But yeah, also, who knows? Potentially the tax credit could be in the crosshairs. So get while the getting's good for sure, instead of rolling the dice.
And along with more aggressive ROI, right? Because I have a large battery storage system over here, I can utilize free nights plan, right? That will lead to more aggressive payback period. My calculation, for me, it's about 4 years to 4.5 years to pay back my system. In most situations, it might be 10 years, right? And so federal tax credits, uncertainty around tariffs, and aggressive payback period is probably.
So obviously the tax credit helps in that break-even analysis. What other factors, and you mentioned free nights plan. So I believe the plan is right now, what Sanjay and I can't control is how the grid electric companies interconnect and interact with these systems. We've already seen that shift in Texas happen where before 2024, almost nobody was installing batteries because you would have true net metering. Every kilowatt hour you would produce, you would get a full kilowatt hour credit, inclusive of the transmission fees. A shift occurred in 2024 where the retailers were excluding the transmission fees, even for existing systems. So there's a lot of people out there that might not necessarily understand that the ground shifted from underneath them. Originally, their systems were performing solar only very well to negate their grid power bills. Now, all of a sudden, without batteries in this vicinity of the world, about 60% of the time, a solar only system, you'd import power from the grid. So for at least the time being, I think, are you enrolled in like a 3-year free nights plan?
I'm not enrolled yet, but that's the plan. We just got this system installed, so we want to make sure we test it out and everything is in working order. And I'm going to shift into, I think they offer a 2-year free nights plan, right? So as long as those type of plans are available, I should be able to have that aggressive payback period, right? And net metering, like you said, it wasn't really an option, and it's really going away slowly for most people. And even if they pay you something, they pay you like 3 cents, on a kilowatt. So really, you're not, getting much out of it.
Yeah, it's very much inching closer and closer to a time of use model with the grid. And so today, when we help Sanjay get enrolled in that free nights plan for the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to set the logic of the batteries to charge from the grid for free at night. And then he's going to use that to supplement his solar performance during the day. Of course, the solar production system today is relatively undersized compared to the amount of electricity you're using. So that could mean that if those free nights plans are no longer available down the road, you would want to or need to add more solar. Exactly. Which would help you to maintain the nominal or minimal grid power bills.
But the beauty of, those free nights plan also is that, when you have cloudy days or stormy days, you're still getting the payback, right? Because you're charging the batteries at night, using those, capacity during the day. So whether the sun is out or not, you're getting the benefit.
Absolutely. And our typical recommendation would be today, because we can't control what the grid electric companies do, they're going to shift the ground from underneath us for their gain and for their benefit. always our recommendations, a 100% or greater solar production system with about 12 hours of continuous power in your batteries. That's going to derive or deliver to you the greatest economic outcome. And then definitely if you're down to crunch the numbers, we could set something up like this as well, which is, heavily gamified against what is currently offered to the grid, which is why you're able to drive your break even down to 4.5 years. So that's really interesting and very much gamified based on how they do it today. So,
like you said, you can't control that. I mean, that may go away in the future, at which point, I'll probably need more solar capacity.
That's the beauty of the EG4 setup as well, is it'd be relatively simple to just add more production without having to expand the guts of the system, being the flex boss, the grid boss, right? We've got a 21K inverter here, which means it can handle up to like 21 kilowatts of solar production, which means that we're about a third of the way there in terms of how much solar panels we can plug into that system.
I mean, the other thing is this system with Grid Boss, you can put 2 more inverters on it, right? So if you had a large residential building, you could technically put 2 more and add that much more solar capacity, right? I don't think I'm going to need it. But, some people might be, hey, one inverter, single point of failure. I want to put another one as a backup. So you may choose to go with 2 smaller ones because they have a FlexBoss 18 that they released, right? So some people might choose 2 18s. Hey, I just want to back up, just in case one inverter fails.
Spot on. Yeah, the Grid Boss setup has 3 inverter ports. And so for those much larger scale projects, the Grid Boss is the automated transfer switch or the microgrid interconnection device. And so you can plug 3 of these inverters up in there. So that'd be 63 kilowatts of solar inversion DC, which is gigantic.
Exactly.
Yeah. But here, like on an optimal, if your home were all due south facing, which of course it's not, a 21 kilowatt solar array would produce like 30,000 some odd kilowatt hours a year, give or take. So that's a lot of power. But what would you say to somebody who's on the fence about going solar, and what might be some misconceptions that you think people might need to let go of?
When I started researching, I was kind of, I didn't want to put panels on the roof. Hey, what happens if there's a storm and the roof gets damaged and, now you got to take out, you have to pay money to take that down the panels and put them back up and things like that. But most home insurance policies cover that. If they're going to cover the roof, they're going to cover the taking down the panels and, the net metering, there's, because of laws that are changing in California, right? Net metering is going away, and people might be thinking that, hey, you might not benefit from solar, just because net metering is going away, but free energy, sun power, utilize free energy. I mean, if you can make it work in your budget, it's the best thing in the world in a situation where if you have an extended outage, hopefully the sun's out and, you'll have some power in your house to keep your lights and fridge running, regardless of what happened in the grid. And we experienced an extended power outage, right? About 4 days, I think. A lot of people were down for like a week, right? In that situation, hey, sun power is there. And, it's the best thing.
Yeah, a few things that I want to pull out from that soundbite, but first being, right, I'm not from an engineering background, but have a lot of friends and clients who are. As I understand it, right, the best part and the best process is no part, no process. And the more you can refine and reduce parts and processes, the more efficient a system works. And so we've built out these huge parts and processes. We have to dig oil up from the ground. We have to burn that oil. The steam from that burning turns a turbine. That turbine, we add a resistance to it. That is what generates the electricity that you then have to transmit hundreds or thousands of miles to deliver it to somebody's home. Well, the sun is the Earth's energy. If the sun goes away,
we have bigger problems.
we won't be here talking. And so really, I've used solar, maybe you agree with me, it's the purest form of energy. We've eliminated so many parts and processes. It's right there. You're just taking the photon of light and allowing this device to create a volt from that and now power your whole home. So you're going from this huge and archaic, gigantic collective system to a very, literally, we're calling them microgrids, a microsystem just for your home, the purest or most distilled version of electricity. Plants grow from sunlight. Animals eat plants and humans eat everything. Here, your home now just eats the sunlight and keeps the home going. You also uplifted insurance. Did you have to change insurance companies?
Not my insurance company covered that as other structures provisions, solar panels and backyard patio structures and things like that. So I didn't have to do anything.
At what stage in the process did you uplift the fact that you're doing solar and batteries to your insurance carrier?
Right before I actually signed a contract to purchase the system.
So in your due diligence period, before we even got the process started, you were investigating how is this going to impact the other aspects of my home, including insurance. So you reach out, which insurance carrier are you with?
State Farm.
You're with State Farm. And so that's a major carrier. And in your experience, you reached out to them, your agent or whomever reached back out to you and said, you're good, no change?
Yep. Solar roof solar is covered in the existing policy. No changes needed.
That's awesome. And then you also uplifted concerns about leaking and things like that in the roof. We installed you the solar piece 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's early May, late April of 2025 here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So if you look at the almanac, you'll know that just here in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we've had some major rain events. Any issues?
No issue. I actually inspected in the attic to see if there was any leaks anywhere. There's no issue whatsoever.
That's awesome. We are making roof penetrations. A lot of folks will come to us and say, I don't want holes in my roof. By virtue of having a roof, you already have holes in your roof. Literally, when you're redoing a roof, they're up there with nail guns, nailing the shingles to the decking, to the roof. How we install our systems, we're going to secure into the structural integrity of your home. We're finding the rafters and we're lagging our bolts right into those rafters. Part of the requirements in City of Louisville is we have to have both a structural engineering professional engineer stamp as well as an electrical engineering stamp. And so for us, there's a lot of oversight that goes into, and part of why we did a site survey beforehand to make sure there were not any snapped rafters in the attic or anything like that. So that way we know, okay, when we install this, it's already a sound structure, and based off of what all engineers are looking at from that standpoint is, what size are the rafters? What's the spacing between them? What's the total weight per roof face that we're adding? What's the span? And what's that weight per square foot that we're added to the roof? Typically, it's less than like 2 pounds per square foot. If you think about a roof space and if roofing contractor is doing your roof, how heavy is the average person? 150, 200 pounds, something to that effect. And from my days in the marching band, I know that a human takes up about 1.5 feet, right? That's about the space that you occupy on the earth at any given moment in time is 1.5 feet. And so if somebody is 200 pounds divided by 1.5 feet, that means that your weight per square foot is 125 pounds. So if you can stand on your roof, that's 125 pounds. These systems add less than 2 pounds per square foot to those roof spaces. And of course, we're getting it stamped, sealed, signed, delivered by professionals like yourself that can say, yes, this is going to be a safe installation. Since getting this thing installed, how has having this impacted your day-to-day mindset?
I mean, peace of mind, right? Right now, I'm not worried about power outages, right? That's one. I am making free power. So I got my own power plant, right? I'm taking sun's energy, converting it into power, and use it for my purposes. And that's the best thing for me, being like self-sufficient, not dependent on something or somebody else, right? And so we try to achieve that in aspects of our life, right? Why not energy?
Absolutely. What was life like before solar and batteries?
So we had, in terms of outages, we haven't had many outages. We have some blimps or, maybe a transformer went out and, we had a couple hours of outages, right? But in terms of outages, it wasn't that much that impacted us personally here in this address. But around us, we saw, what was happening, right? We see in the news, hey, during the storm, just down about a half a mile from here, a transformer went out, the whole block was out, And so we see those. And so, there is instability in the grid, right? And so, now that's peace of mind. At least you don't have to worry about situations like those.
That grid instability, if you were to project into the future, where do you see the trend of that going?
Well, I mean, I'm in IT, and, the biggest thing that's happening is AI, right? And AI is causing a massive growth in data centers. And data centers are eating up a lot of energy, right? This is just a huge warehouse worth of computers that are taking up a lot of energy. And so when you have so much demand, and the grid can only do so much, right? So you'll have problem, growing pains, right? Mm-hmm. And DFW area is growing so fast. So along with the data centers, everything else is growing so fast, and that puts a strain on the grid as well, right? So I mean, I see, there will be interruptions. I see cost of electricity is going to go up. All right, it's just natural. That's probably the future.
Could not agree more. No notes on that. So yeah, the demand for electricity is skyrocketing. We've already felt that in the last 4 years, really since the February 2021 snowstorm and freeze that caused many power outages. We've really felt the wholesale rates and transmission fees jostle loose out of what was a 10 to 15 year kind of flat period and lull. We've been seeing an annual rate increases of like 10% per year. More people moving here, more people plugging their vehicles in instead of fueling them at the pump, data center growth for artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, cloud compute and storage, what this YouTube video is going to be hosted on. And the amount of electricity that we're going to use in Texas is supposed to double between today and 2030. And there's no real plans for increasing supply. The natural gas power plants are a decade out from coming online. And so every single year we've been setting new daily demand records within ERCOT, the Energy Reliability Council of Texas. They're one of the overseeing bodies for all of the electricity in Texas. And every summer we're, pushing those limits. And so it's going to drive prices of electricity higher and higher. It's going to create more of those constraints between supply and demand. that could lead to more rolling outages. Every summer they ask us, set your thermostats to 97 degrees. Like, okay, I'm not going to be sweating in my home. So those things will continue to...
I mean, demand and cost is going to go up. But the other thing that we all notice is there are a lot of weather-related issues that are happening. I mean, I've noticed it in the last 5 years. More so, I've been in Texas for about 10 years. And I already see, when I got here, we didn't have as many storms. And today, you have so many storms and, storm-related damages and things like that. Right? So demand, cost, and storms.
The trifecta. Yeah, very not good. 2 more questions, I think. There might be some micro questions in there too, but how would you describe just the overall story arc and journey? Has it been easy, simple, very difficult, complex? What's been your overall experience?
So I think picking the solution was easy, for me. Picking somebody who to partner with was a little bit difficult, right? And I've got so many different proposals, and just never really felt good, right? And then I met you. You have a very simple agreement, and a lot of things I didn't even ask, like what type of panels you use, and you use quality stuff. Do you use optimizer? You use optimizers, right? I didn't even know that, right? When I signed the agreement with you, and the installation process. I mean, there was no cutting of corners anywhere. In fact, you probably went out of your way, and your team went out of their way to do the job correctly, right? So as we moved into a different stage of the project, starting from, submitting the plans to the city of Louisville and how thorough you were working with TNMP and submitting the plans there, it put me at ease, right? And then the next stage was, hey, getting, some of the installation started, the roof solar panels getting installed. And the guys came in and how they did their job and running the wires and, what really quality workmanship. And then the 2 magicians came in to do the electrical work, and, they were fantastic, they're very detail oriented, they did stuff that, you probably normally wouldn't think about, right? Like, moving into the smart port. Any other contractor would have probably said, hey, that's not part of our agreement. I'm going to charge you extra, things like that, right? And I run into that in the past, and I didn't run into any of those issues. And so partnering with you for this project was probably the best thing for me.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. I appreciate that. Last one. If your home could speak since adding the solar and batteries, what do you think the house would say?
Oh, boy. I have no idea.
That's a creative one. I like it a lot. If I had to personify the home, I would say, have you ever watched SpongeBob? Well, there's an episode of SpongeBob where he goes into Sandy, who's the squirrel that lives underwater and has like an igloo type, air dome that she can breathe and stuff in. But SpongeBob is a water creature, and so whenever he goes to the dome, he doesn't have water. And so my vision for the home, what the home was saying is, I need solar, I need batteries. And now he's like, water. That'd be my guess. Okay, so Troy found an article. He sent it to me recently, and I didn't read it all that thoroughly. I don't know all the ins and outs of it yet. However, we recently read that Japan is going to capture solar in space and what do you think space-based solar power could mean for the future of global energy?
I don't know. I haven't read the article or saw what the full technology is all about. But I guess my assumption is you're above the clouds, and so there's plenty of sun in the space. If you can harness that power and send it down to Earth, where your power generation equipment is, then you're gonna 24/7. You're gonna provide energy. Is my assumption.
I agree. I mean, even for the last 2 decades, I remember talks about space elevators, and so I'm not sure how near or far we are from something like that. Obviously, it would be wild, would be awesome. But just like how we build a lot of other infrastructure, highways and stuff like that, a lot of the transmission lines parallel those highways. Maybe we're going to build a space elevator and there's a paralleling, I'm not even sure what size cables or wires would be required to transmit that electricity from space back to Earth. But that would be wild for sure.
I mean, before then, I'd probably like to see, wireless power in your house. That's what that idea is, right? Without a wire, I'm going to send power from space to ground. Well, if we can eliminate wires in our house, power lines in our house, then that'd be one step closer to being completely wire free.
That reminds me of like the phone cases now where you just, set the phone onto it, or you're not actually plugging something in. I've got no clue how those apparatuses work, but it's definitely interesting. They're talking about it for potentially electric vehicles as well. Just, instead of having to get out of your car and plug it in, just roll over and, and so especially on an electric vehicle where you've got rubber touching the ground, it's not that the phone case is plugged into the phone and then the two touching make it, right? If you're just hovering over it, how does that even work? I have no idea.
Yeah. It's amazing. Advancements are happening, so we'll see.
I've seen some other things about even just doing like a space mirror and reflecting that mirror satellite to a solar array or installation, so that way it is capturing power day and night, that type of thing too. We know that it would only take about 1% of the U.S. geography. If we loaded that up with solar panels, could be a little bit of land, ultra inexpensive in West Texas or something, that would produce all of the electricity for the entirety of the United States. And then it just becomes a transmission issue and or a storage issue with batteries of how you utilize the sun's power day and night. But I'm not sure how close we are to somebody undertaking that project. So Sanjay, thank you again, sir. And we're in Louisville, Texas. We installed an 8.6 kilowatt solar system with 20 Q-cell Qtron 430 watt modules. We've got 6 EG4 Power Pro wall mount batteries. Each of those are 14.3 kilowatt hours each. Grand total 85.8 kilowatt hours of battery capacity with the 21K FlexBoss and GridBoss EG4 setup. 4 smart ports, rerouted the circuits per the preference of Sanjay to those. And just a really interesting setup. We'd love to help you set the logic for your home and let your home breathe like it finally got the water that it needed. So anyways, if you'd like to learn a little bit more, click the link below and we'd be happy to help you out.